Hey folks, Gary here. Man, I hope you're having an awesome Saturday. I'm having a great Saturday. And if you watched the football game last night, you know the Stampeders won, which means, man, we're looking good for a playoff spot. Which, if the Stamps get in, that means the Riders don't. So that might be a bit of a problem as we live deep in Rider country. But everyone here is so lovely. I'm sure it'd be fine. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. We're looking at Deuteronomy chapter 5 today, verses 23 down to 27. And the background of this is that Moses has gone up on the mountain, Mount Sinai. He's come down with the Ten Commandments. The mountain is just enveloped in fire and smoke, and God is speaking to them. And it is like a sensory overload because God is just so incredibly big and powerful and glorious. And so this is the conversation that takes place after this. So verse 23. But when you heard the voice from the heart of the darkness while the mountain was blazing with fire, all your tribal leaders and elders came to me. They said, "Look, the Lord our God has shown us his glory and greatness, and we have heard his voice from the heart of the fire. Today we have seen that God can speak to us humans, and yet we live." They're shocked by this, right? Because God is just so powerful. They get they start to see just how incredibly fragile they are in the presence of God. Verse 25. But now, why should we risk death again? If the Lord our God speaks to us again, we will certainly die and be consumed by this awesome fire. You know, it's not so bad to be consumed by God. But continuing on here, verse 26, can any living thing hear the voice of the living God from the heart of the fire as we did and yet survive? Well, yes, we can now. We actually can do that when we give our lives to God. We have our salvation. God speaks to us all the time. But we'll continue on back with their perspective. Verse 27. Go yourself and listen to what the Lord our God says. Then come tell us everything he tells you, and we will listen and obey. God wants us to listen and God wants us to obey. But how does he want us to do that? I guess how. He wants us to do it, but how does he want us to do it? Does he want us to obey and listen because we're terrified? No, not at all. And at this point in time, the Israelites, they're not saying we're going to listen and obey because they're fearful of God. They're saying we're going to listen and obey because they're so in love with him. They're so impressed with him. His glory is so overwhelming. It's like, how could we not follow him? At this point in time, that's what they're deciding. And that's what God wants. God doesn't want you to listen to him and obey him because you're fearful from him. He wants you to listen and obey him because you have a relationship with him and because you are deeply moved by him and you want to please him. And he's just so good. You say, how could I choose other things? He is so amazing and good. It's only good for me if I follow him, but I do it because I love him deeply. And that's what God looks for from us, from his children, from those who have given their lives to him, that we be so in love with him that we say, whatever you ask, God, it's my pleasure to do it because he's so good.